Right, hello, I'm Debs and this is Debs Made This. Well, today I have a pattern review for you. So the pattern I'm reviewing is this one, which is the Riviera Dress by Trend Patterns. Just get the front page for you. There we go. So this was a new to me pattern company and I really liked the look of this dress. I shall put in the image that they produced on their Instagram when they were releasing it. And I thought this looked splendid. I didn't really have an occasion to wear it. The Knitting and Stitching Show was coming to Harrogate, and I decided that that would be my deadline and that I would try and get this dress made for then. I thought it didn't look too complicated because there was a grown-on sleeve, there was this oversized sleeve with a cuff, and then a panelled skirt and a panelled waistband. And my plan today is to take you through kind of the nuts and bolts of the pattern, my experience of making the pattern up, and my experience of wearing the dress. They give you a list of suggested fabrics, which are wovens, light to medium, light crepe, cotton, poplin, shirting, and viscose. And then she gives you tools and trims and tips. There is also on the pattern the finished garment measurement, including the neck to arm length, the hip circumference, the bicep width, the chest width. So all of those are really helpful. There's also a cutting layout given and fabric allowance suggestion. The pattern itself is produced on A4 and A0. It is not layered. Normally, when you send an A0 to be printed, you can choose which layers you want to have printed and the printer will just print those, which makes it a lot easier when it comes to cutting out or grading between sizes. I didn't realise this when I sent this away to be printed. I sent it to Fabuloso. They were quick. They were very helpful. And when I said, excuse me, I did ask for this size and this size, they said, it isn't layered, Deb, which is a pity, I think. When it came back, the colours of the lines that I'd chosen, so I'd chosen the 12 and the 16, but between them, those colours were turquoise blue, purple and pale blue. So all of the colours were really close. I'll put an image in, but all the closest colours were really close together. So actually, because you couldn't select the layers and because the base layer, which was the 8, was in a really thick black print, it made it really difficult, actually more difficult than it needed to be, I felt. So that's the pattern. So kind of, yeah, nothing unsurmountable there really, unless you particularly don't want to tape 50 pieces of A4 together. And why would you? The instructions are printed and there are diagrams. There are a couple of issues with the written instructions. There was a couple of typos and one point where finishing the horizontal edges of the skirt is mentioned when she means the vertical edges. But it took me quite a long time. I had to kind of read through everything and make sure that that was what was meant. And I think if you were a newer sewer, I think you would have been a bit flummoxed by that. As it was, I get a little bit concerned if there's typos or things like that should be caught by somebody sensible reading through the pattern. I start to get a bit worried about everything else and whether the pattern has actually been tested. On the pattern, there isn't the body sizes, so you can't see what size you should be making on the pattern, which seems a little bit strange to me. So you have to go back to the website and look at the Riviera Dress page to see what the reference points are. It's done in centimetres, not inches, so then you have to convert it. The reference point for the fabric requirements was also, I'll put the picture in here, but you can see that as we go up one size, the pattern requirements don't go up, but then the next size, they've gone up again. So I'm not sure that kind of read quite right. Again, it's another typo. So I messaged on Instagram because the business account, because obviously I was going to buy fabric and I wanted to be absolutely clear how much fabric I was supposed to be buying. So I messaged and I didn't get any reply. So that's kind of worth knowing, I think. I kind of went with the next size up to make sure that I would definitely have enough. I bought 4.5 meters of the fabric that I used to make sure that I had plenty. So according to my pattern, my sizes puts me in a 12 at the bodice and a 16 at the waist. So I graded between the 12 at the bodice and the 16 at the waist because it looked like the 16 needed to be accurate because that's kind of snuggest part. It's finished with a concealed zipper which goes most of the way up the back. There's a small segment at the top of the back, which you'll see when I do my twirl, where the zip doesn't go up to. So yeah, so that needed to be fitted. and I had to do quite a lot of adjustments afterwards, and take the zip in by about 2 to 3 centimetres on each side, so 6 centimetres. So yeah, so that's difficult. Now I didn't twirl this. I could have twirled it, and I certainly could have twirled the bodice and the waistband, which would have saved me time. But there were so many pattern pieces, so there were 40 pattern pieces. So that's including kind of duplicates, because there are 7 pieces on the outer waistband and 7 pieces on the inner waistband, 7 pieces on the skirt, and then the skirt is faced to hem it. So there's quite a lot of different pattern pieces to be dealing with. I elected not to twirl it. So yes, I could have worked that out if I had twirled it, but I did make some adjustments. I did record a bit of footage, but the sound isn't very clear. If it's any use, I'll put it in here. Hello, hopefully you're going to be able to see. So this is my Trend Patterns Riviera dress. I am fitting. It is the Knitting and Stitching show tomorrow. It is not finished. I know. Been lots of things happening. So this is where we've got to. So I have made the 12 bodice grading to the 16 at the waist, which I did not need to do. The sleeve, I did not add any length to, just showing you the length of my sleeve. And it is supposed to kind of be a little bit oversized, but I normally add, for reference, at least an inch to every pattern that I make. I have really long arms, so I think that will be okay. But what I have got is a huge amount of let me make sure I'm in. I've got a huge amount of room here. Now it's a grown on sleeve, so it's never going to be like tailored to my body, but I just think it probably needs to, I probably could have stuck with the 12. So what I did was went from the 12 and then graded into the 16 here, and I think I probably need to sit with the 12 so that the up here is more 12 like than 16. I've basted, I'll turn around, I've basted the zip in, sorry, realising I'm not mic'd up, an invisible zip in, but there's quite, I've got my trousers on underneath, sorry if you can see them, but I can take pinch a centimetre out each side and it still feels like there's room. So I'm going to snug the zip in a little bit, I think, and I'll probably just wear it. I think perhaps what I need to do when I make it again is to take out some of the bodice here. And I didn't do that because when I measured the pattern pieces, this bit was the right length for me and this bit is the right length for me. But this bit is probably a little bit oversized, and you can see that there's gathering in at the shoulder, so it's more tricky to take it in there. So I probably won't do that before tomorrow, but I might just kind of continue this up here. You can also see I haven't clipped into my curves. Can you see how it's pulling? So yes, always clip your curves when you have a curve that's going around a corner, especially if you then overlock it, because it's pulling a little bit. But like, I didn't mind too much because I thought I was probably going to need to do this when I saw how wide the bodice was here. So for reference, my chest is here. So there's a good bit that could come and still kind of look elegant. I think pockets are in. And as I said, the only thing that isn't in is the zips really basted in to see how it was looking. Yeah, so that's where we've got to. I shall show you again when I'm finished. Bye for now. But essentially, so then what I ended up doing was to keep so I kind of had graded from the 12 here down to the 14 at the waist. So what I did was then go back in and go along the 12 and almost to the 8 actually. And then because there was so much room in the bodice of the dress, and then kind of just grade out towards the 16. It was just slightly frustrating because having taken all that extra in, I thought I could have probably made a straight size 12 and it would have been fine. But because there was only a centimetre seam allowance, I didn't have the play to be able to kind of mess about with the sizing quite so much. So they were my kind of grumps and grumbles about it. But I loved this dress. I loved wearing this dress. And I know I'm horizontal, so like I say, I will put in some pictures. So this is made in a Tencel cotton ex-designer dead stock from Fabworks Mill in Dewsbury. There is an additional modesty panel. I've just tacked mine in rather than anchoring it in so that I could potentially wear it just with a turtleneck underneath. If I get a chance, I will style it. There are these very big cuffs, and I have used a very sweet vintage glass button on mine. There's a suggestion you could put a second one further up, but I thought when they're these big glamorous buttons, I probably just want one. And I wore them kind of folded back. These cuffs are not quite tight enough for me. Where the button placement is on the cuff is massive, so I need to change that as well. But I didn't want to do that because it felt like it was pulling the sleeve across a little bit. So there are gathers. So there's a panelled grown-on bodice, as you can see. There are gathers into this fitted waistband, and then at the back we've got the same. We've got a gathered panelled skirt, the gathered waistband, and then the invisible zip that ends about here. And as I say, this fabric, this tencel fabric is, it's got this lovely texture to it, which is almost like a kind of hound tooth shape. Just made it feel, gave some extra depth to it. And it was really, really nice to swish around in. I was still hemming the face in by hand at midnight the night before, but yeah, that's okay, isn't it? I think that kind of means it's an occasion. Sorry, I'm sitting here pulling the bits off it because it's got some bits and pieces on it. There's some gathering in the shoulder, which I presume you can see. Oh, that was another thing that was strange, actually. Sorry, I tried to put all these things together. When you gather, she has you gather these to be a certain dimension, depending on what size it is, and then you gather them and then overlock them before you put the two edges together. So normally you would put the two edges together and you would have a notch and you would gather between the notches to make the pieces fit. So it just felt it was a slightly more complicated way of doing the same thing. So I didn't do it that way. I did it the way that I thought it should be done on the waistband. On the day, I wore it with snag tights and Lanks boots, because why wouldn't you? And that meant I was really comfy all the day. I put my leather jacket over the top, and Darling Ruth Creates paid for me to put my jacket into the cloakroom, which was very special. Overall, I loved the dress. I didn't love the experience of making the dress. It took me a really long time. I'm trying to think. I think it was at least probably 4 days total. The cutting out took me ages. So the panels on the waist, this is the big panel, and then there's smaller panels that are about this big round the rest of the waistband. And so I spent ages making sure they were on grain, because there's obviously this little tiny check through it, and making sure that I'd got the right curve next to the right curve, that none of the pattern pieces have got letters or numbers on them. They're just described, which I think it would be very easy to add those. So that my suggestion, if you were going to make this a better pattern, would be to pattern test it, put layers on the pattern. If you can't do that, please at least don't make one size much clearer than all the rest, and then have a bunch of sizes in the middle with similar colours next to each other. Oh, I sound like I'm moaning now. I'm not moaning. I just think there are things that could be done that would make this even better than it is. So yes, it wasn't the best experience sewing it, but I'm very glad I sewed it, and I love it very much. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get lots of wear out of it, because I feel very elegant and sophisticated and glamorous, and yet like not too much. You know what I mean? It's not too twee. It's not too fussy. It feels quite kind of stylish. I think I could wear it with heels and jewellery, and I might treat you to me in heels and jewellery shortly. But also, yeah, as I say, with a turtleneck and longer boots and maybe a waistcoat over the top as time goes on. So, recommend the dress, not sure about the pattern. Would I leap to do another Trend Patterns? I don't know. At least I know kind of the style, and sometimes that's the thing, isn't it? It's just coming to a new style of pattern making. So now I know what the style is of those patterns. At least I've got my eyes open. I wouldn't pay full price. I did also send her a message to ask her if there was any plan to layer the PDF or extend the side range, and she didn't answer about that either. When I met her at the Knitting and Stitching, she was very lovely. She said she'd been following me on Instagram, but didn't make any comments. So I don't know if she hasn't even seen the messages, perhaps. But just by comparison, so I was trying to do something with the Sunstar swimsuit by Helen's Closet, and I messaged on her Instagram, and I got a reply within 4 hours. So as soon as she went into work, somebody replied to me and let me know and sent me resources. And, you know, it's just, I think it's really important that customer service reflects the needs of your customers. And I understand that people don't do it full time, and I didn't expect, you know, a really quick response, but I did expect at least a response. There are a couple of things that could have been changed that would improve the experience. I'm delighted. So yeah, let me know what you think. Have you made a trend pattern? Do you think am I being overly fussy? I'm trying to, like, I'm channeling my lost my thread. Theresa's so good at this, and I'm trying to not sound too miserable about it all, because I'm not miserable. I've got a lovely dress out of it, but I just think there are some things that would have made it a little bit easier. And if somebody else came to make it, I think, you know, I've been sewing for 12 years, and I've sewn a lot of garments by a lot of different pattern makers in different languages, in different styles. But yeah, this was just a different experience. So let me know, what's the most challenging thing you've ever sewn? Which patterns do you find the best, or do you struggle the most with? And are there some that you would buy and make even if you struggled a little bit with how their patterns were? So let me know. Dish the gossip. I shall say bye-bye for now. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are finding time to rest and replenish and do some making, if that's something that brings you joy. And I shall see you again for another video soon. Bye-bye for now. God bless.